Hi, welcome back to another CSRM podcast. I am Andrew Fouts. I'm the Director of Digital Resource Development here at CSRM. And we are walking through our series on technology and ministry. And specifically, we are walking through the 4 C's of podcasting. Last week, we took a look at content, what you put into it, how to decide these sort of things, what to look at putting in. This week, we are going to look at what makes people keep on listening and subscribing and asking their questions, and that is your credibility. And this is a big piece because you're not going to get the constant viewership or the subscribes or the likes or any of those things that are beneficial if you're not a credible source. Why do we say beneficial? Because everybody knows there are tons of YouTube channels out there that are massively successful and are even making money, but it's only because of the fact that they have a really bad reputation. It's either, it's all comedy, some of it is harmful comedy, or even some just purely ridiculous reputations that are out there. And for a ministry, that's not going to be helpful. It's not going to be beneficial whatsoever. And a lot of what we're going to see here today is that the same things that we talk about in terms of keeping ourselves accountable as ministers applies to us online as well. We talked a lot already about the fact that YouTube has become a source for answers among millennials. And so we have to ask the question then, who and where do we want them getting their answers to the spiritual and theological questions from? We as the church already do have the credentials needed for most people to feel comfortable asking us these kind of questions and for people to trust that these answers are genuine. Whether they'll take them or not is a whole nother thing. But the reality is that the church does already still have enough respect and the credentials and a reputation even among the millennials that have left the church to answer some of these questions. Doesn't mean we're going to be taken seriously or that they're going to listen, but they at least know that we're not just making this up as we go along. And so because of that, we've said it numerous times already, but this is why it's such a big piece, is that this is why the church needs to be tackling these kind of tough issues first, like we talked about with content already. We need to be on the front lines doing these kind of things. We need to be upfront and honest talking human trafficking, sexual misconduct, stuff like we did with the Me Too video, social justice issues, racial issues, how the church is supposed to respond when these sort of things are going on. What does the church have to say about family matters, things like abortion, things like divorce, things like, all these different kind of things, cohabitation, all those sort of things. What does the church say about these things? We need to be on the front lines talking about the drug crisis. Here in Ohio especially, even though I know it's around the country, the opiate epidemic is massive in Ohio. The church can be on the front lines talking about these things. And even, unfortunately, the church can be on the front lines talking about some of these other false preachers and prophets that are out here on YouTube and doing podcasts and things like that and calling them out biblically like we're told to do in 2 Timothy. Rather than sit around and have others answer these kind of questions for us, people that are either uncredible because they are not, they don't have the reputation of being a source, a church, a pastor, a theologian, any of that. Or in some cases, people that don't even have the biblical authority to speak for the church on these sort of issues. When we've got kids that are getting online that are answering these questions where they may be completely 100% right and biblically accurate, they don't have the authority to speak for the church. And so we lose our credibility that comes naturally from having the word church or Christian in our titles when we do not actually address these issues and allow other people to answer for us. If we don't act, others will. We've seen this. YouTube is the perfect example of this. For the longest time, the churches were not online, and so students were getting online for the church and answering these kind of questions, which is great because a lot of them showed the maturity and the spirit moving and all this other stuff. But the credibility is not there, and the church has lost some of the credibility when you've got a bunch of teenagers answering these questions and the pastor's just sitting in the background doing nothing. Pastors, you all protect your pulpit. You make sure you know who is speaking and what's being spoken about. So why are we not taking the same considerations when it comes to our online church as well? Don't be afraid to market yourself as a credible source. I hate doing this. Dr. Linville and our executive director, David Waddell, get on me all the time about the fact that I do not market myself well because I hate talking about myself. But this is something that the church has to do, especially online, so we have to be willing to market ourselves as credible sources. Our normal host for CSRM podcast is Dr. Greg Linville. That title demands a different kind of attention than just some random YouTuber. I am a licensed pastor. I carry credibility when talking about theological or spiritual issues. But I'm also the director of digital resource development for the Association of Church, Sports, and Recreation Ministries. I'm an authority, whether I like it or not, on digital ministry, and so there's different kind of respect and credentials that come along with that. And so there's nothing wrong with using these titles online. In fact, we should be using them. You use them when you're introducing people in your church bulletins, when you're writing any kind of academic papers. This comes into play. So why are we not doing the same thing with our online publications as well? Along these lines, though, something to remember about the online community is that the same rules that we follow for inner city ministry applies. Inner city ministry, if you are not familiar with it or have never done it, is completely different than any other kind of ministry. Suburban ministry, rural ministry, those two kind of have their own separate culture and rules to it. And this isn't meant to criticize or convict. This is just an observation that I've had, is that a lot of times in the suburban rural community churches, masks are kind of forced onto pastors to be worn. They are expected to act a certain way. They're expected to dress a certain way. They're expected to talk a certain way. They're not supposed to be sad at the pulpit. They're not supposed to be upset. All these sort of things. And it almost works in those kind of areas. You can't do that in the inner city. In the inner city, if you are not 100% yourself 100% of the time, you are going to get torn apart. That's just the reality of things. The idea of being 100 is huge within the hip-hop movement, within the inner city movements. And it's crucial because if there's any kind of mask put on or walls built up, they're going to immediately get torn down, and you are not going to have the trust of the people around you. The same thing applies when we talk online. If you put on a false persona online or try to cover up things online, you're immediately going to be torn apart and your credibility is going to be gone. Currently, we're seeing this all the time within our culture, both politically and within the sports world. Tweets from over a decade ago, some 15 years ago, are causing people to have to resign their positions, issue apologies, they're getting fined, all these sort of things. And this is stuff that happened, before they were even in that position. But because they are now going and taking stances in a public format, the online community is going and trying to find places that they can take people down. The word that we use in the online community for these people are called trolls. The little ugly things that sit underneath the bridge. Same sort of thing. Pastors, we have to be careful about how we put ourselves out online, because the trolls are going to be the first ones that are going to go and try and find things to tear you down for. If for no other reason, because of the fact that you have the respect and the credentials of being the church and a pastor, you're going to be the first one that is attacked. Jesus promised us this. It's the same thing that we understand about doing ministry in the real world. It's the same thing that we see online. We are going to be attacked because of our faith. That's just the way things are. But because of our faith, we also don't have to be afraid of our past. And so we can use past experiences, we can use those kind of things to help build up our credentials online and not have them be thrown at us and used to tear us down. A lot of time we feel like there's this sort of disconnect between the online communities and the people that we actually have in our pews and they're coming in the doors on Sundays. But the reality is that your online congregation needs a shepherd just as much as the people that come in Sunday morning and that are in the pews. Sometimes even more so, because they're not even able to get out of bed and show their face within the church. Case in point, there are two gentlemen right now that refer to me as being their pastor, and I have never actually had a face-to-face meeting with them. We have conversations and discipleship time and accountability time over Facebook Messenger. We walk and discuss the scriptures on there. We're sharing different YouTube videos of other pastors that are addressing some of these issues of, even in some cases with the one gentleman, even videos of a lot of atheist accusers of pastors, things like that, and we discuss them there, and we pray there, and we share prayer requests, and we share what's going on in our lives. And if I were to treat these guys as second class because they are not in our services on Sunday or they are not actually showing up at our Bible studies, then that would be a huge misservice to them. It would be a big hole in all of our lives, and it would be a major discipleship opportunity that was completely missed by me, and a discipleship opportunity that was missed for them to be discipled. And it also has an effect because now potentially there could be generations of disciples that are not going to get that kind of care or that kind of comfort or the opportunity even to talk about Jesus because of the fact that these guys did not get the opportunity to talk about Jesus with somebody that they found that they could trust, even though we've never actually met in person. Your credibility online falls hand in hand with your credibility in your building. We've got to make sure that we are credible. We got to make sure that we are keeping ourselves accountable. We've got to make sure that we are putting on a true gospel presentation for people online and not a fake one. So, content, we talked last time about the fact that it's got to be true to your vision. The credibility is the same thing. It's got to be true to the mission and vision and true to your calling and true to what the gospel means to you and what you're trying to say. You can't put on a fake persona just like we can't be contenting a fake gospel. We're going to close this one out now. Next time I will be on here, we're going to talk about the CF commitment, which is one that unfortunately I have a problem with already. And so we're going to talk commitment, the time commitment, the financial commitment, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to walk through that area next time. So I hope you'll join us again next time for the CSRM podcast. Again, I'm Andrew Fouts. We're walking through a series on technology and ministry. Go check out our website, csrm.org. You can find some more information about some of the other stuff we're doing with Overwhelming Victory Flicks, Overwhelming Victory Press, the Agone Institute. You can also check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and you can even sign up for the newsletter for these kind of podcasts. So hope you will join us next time.